Rain has a way of muting the world, but amplifying what's inside you. It wasn't the soft kind of rain either. It was the kind that clung to your bones, crawled down your spine, and made everything feel a little more personal. Nia Rowland pushed open the glass door of Bailey's diner, the bell above her head letting out a half-hearted ding. The place smelled like burnt bacon and reheated regret. Her boots left a trail of uneven puddles behind her, but no one said a word. They just stared, like the weather had dragged in a ghost. She didn't bother looking back at them. You only need to feel it to know. Some folks glance. Others glare. All of it means the same thing. You weren't expected, and you sure weren't wanted. She slid into the corner booth, the one where broken vinyl met a window that fogged up just enough to blur judgment. What happened next was not only a lesson for the aggressors, but also a powerful reminder of empathy, responsibility, and the ongoing fight for equal dignity. We're about to share a powerful moment of truth. But first, drop your location and let us know, have you ever witnessed or experienced something like this? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button because tomorrow we have another incredible story, and there are many surprises waiting for you in the next parts. Her military jacket sagged on her shoulders. Sun-faded, wind-warped, a size too big now. Time has a way of loosening your grip on things, even your own body. She peeled it off and dropped it on the seat beside her, careful not to make a scene. The duffel bag hit the floor with a tired thud. Her hands, raw and cracked, smoothed out a crumpled $5 bill with a kind of gentleness no one expected from a woman who looked like she slept in alleys and walked through rain like it owed her something. She didn't need a full menu. She just wanted a cup of coffee. Cream if they had it. That's it. Erin, the waitress, maybe 25, with tired eyeliner and a name tag stuck on crooked. She looked at Nia's face, then her boots, then the bag. "You planning to order something?" she asked, her voice balanced right on the edge between tired and bothered. Nia didn't blink. "Coffee. Cream if you got it." Erin nodded but stood still, like the decision needed approval from somewhere higher up the food chain. And right on cue, in walked Leighton and Rafferty, the kind of cops who didn't need to announce themselves. Their boots did the talking. Leighton walked like his belt gave him gravity. Rafferty had the face of someone who'd never been told no and never thought to ask twice. They were regulars, judging by the nod the manager gave them from behind the counter, a nod Nia didn't get. The air in the diner shifted the moment they walked in, not louder, not tenser, just heavier, like everyone instinctively knew something might happen, but hoped it wouldn't involve them. Leighton's eyes locked onto her before his feet did. He nudged Rafferty and headed over. "Ma'am," he said as if the word didn't stick to his tongue. "You with someone?" Nia didn't flinch. "No, just waiting on coffee." Rafferty chuckled, the kind of chuckle that made you feel like a punchline. "You waitin' or you loitering?" Leighton nodded toward her duffel. "You passing through or planning to stick around?" Nia leaned back slightly, not enough to provoke, just enough to let them know she wasn't in retreat. "Is that a crime now?" she asked, dry as salt. The diner went quieter than it should have. Forks stalled midair. Conversations got real polite, real fast. Leighton pressed his boot against the strap of her bag. "You mind picking this up? People might trip." Nia looked at the boot, then the man. "You worried about safety now?" It wasn't sharp, it was surgical. Leighton's jaw flexed, but he didn't bite. Rafferty crossed his arms. "Let's not make this difficult." Nia's voice didn't rise. "I didn't come here to make anything difficult. I came here to sit, maybe drink something warm, then leave." She paused. "That's it?" Rafferty glanced around, pretending like someone else had a problem. "Some folks might be uncomfortable." Nia's eyes hardened. "Yeah, I know how that goes. I also know how it goes when people in authority start using comfort as a cover for disrespect." That's when Leighton nudged the bag again. Not hard, but with intention, the kind of nudge that wasn't about the bag at all. Nia bent down, picked it up slow, and slid it beside her on the booth. Then she looked up, eyes calm, voice flat. "You ever serve?" Leighton frowned. "What's that got to do with anything?" She shrugged. "Nothing. Just helped me decide how much patience to give you." That landed, not loud, not dramatic, but sharp enough to split silence down the middle. Rafferty muttered under his breath. Leighton's hand moved an inch closer to his belt, not quite drawing a line, but threatening to. And just like that, the game changed. Nobody in the diner moved, but everybody leaned in. If not with their bodies, then with their attention, because now they weren't just watching a homeless woman in a booth. They were watching someone who clearly knew more than she let on. Leighton's boot nudged the bag again, this time a little firmer, just enough to say you don't belong here without having to say a word. He didn't realize it, but in that moment he stepped on something more dangerous than any trip hazard. He stepped on memory. He stepped on sacrifice. He stepped on the kind of dignity you can't fake with a badge or a belt buckle. The diner felt it. Aaron stopped pretending to wipe down the counter. The man in the back with the newspaper didn't turn the page. Even the air paused, thick with something ancient and ugly. Nia didn't flinch. She didn't snap. She just moved with that slow, deliberate grace you only learn when hesitation gets you hurt. She reached down, picked up her duffel with care, and placed it beside her in the booth, like it was holding more than socks, like it carried history. Then she looked up, face calm, eyes steady, voice quiet enough to make people lean in. "You ever serve?" she asked again, not as a question this time, but as a mirror. Leighton blinked. He was used to barking, not being asked to reflect. "What's that got to do with anything?" he asked, squinting like her words were smoke he couldn't get out of his eyes. Nia shrugged. "Helps me figure out how much patience I owe you." She wasn't smiling, she wasn't posturing, but her presence filled that booth like armor. And you could tell, in the way she sat and the way she breathed, that she had worn the real thing before. Leighton bristled, trying to regain control with silence, but it was already slipping through his fingers like loose change. "You know what I think," he said after a beat, leaning in just enough to make his breath land on the table like a dare. "I think you're one of those who comes back thinking the country owes you something. Medal in one pocket, attitude in the other." It was a line he'd probably used before, or at least thought about using. It dripped with the kind of disdain that comes from comfort. People who've never been asked to bleed for anything. Nia didn't even blink. She let the insult hang in the air for a moment, then slowly tilted her head. "You know what I came back with?" she asked. "A limp. A bronze star. And no fixed address." She let that sit, let the weight of it settle on the room like dust. "I didn't ask for parades. I asked for peace. But peace don't come easy when folks like you treat quiet like it's weakness." There was something surgical in the way she spoke, not angry, not flustered, just clean cuts to the bone. "You look at this duffel and see a problem. I look at it and see deployments. You see a jacket and assume I'm trouble. I see a jacket that still smells like sand and diesel and bad memories." She leaned in slightly, but her voice stayed level. "I've had mortars land closer to me than your ego, so if you're trying to scare me, you might want to try harder." Leighton's lips parted, but the words didn't come. Rafferty shifted behind him, less sure now. The sound of the coffee machine sputtering in the back was the only thing brave enough to speak. Then Nia reached into her coat, slowly, deliberately, like she knew they were watching for a sudden move, and pulled out a phone. Not a sleek smartphone. A scratched, taped-up, beat-to-hell flip phone. The kind you forget still exists, unless you've lived a life where function matters more than fashion. Leighton scoffed, trying to laugh off the pressure building in his chest. "What, you're going to call your lawyer on a burner?" Nia didn't even glance at him. "No," she said, "just an old friend." She started pressing numbers, each click from that old keypad hitting harder than any legal threat. The room tensed. Aaron backed up a step. Leighton's posture straightened. Even Rafferty leaned slightly forward, curiosity mixing with caution. She put the phone to her ear. "Cam," she said. "Yeah, it's me. I'm at Bailey's Diner, 2 units here. You want their badge numbers or should I guess?" She didn't yell, she didn't threaten, but her voice had the kind of gravity that made you listen the first time. She looked at the officers again. "Which one of you wants to make this official?" Leighton opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Rafferty shifted again. Erin looked like she might be sick. The diner had gone silent, not awkward silent. Funeral silent. The kind of silence that falls just before the verdict gets read. The coffee in her mug was cold now, but the room was boiling. Nia didn't flinch when the line connected. She spoke with the kind of clarity that makes people put their forks down. "I'm at Bailey's Diner," she said, scanning the 2 officers who were now standing very still. "2 badges. Leighton and Rafferty. You want their numbers, or should I guess?" Her voice wasn't raised, but it sliced through the room like it had teeth. Leighton's jaw tightened. Rafferty's fingers twitched at his side. And Nia? Nia was just getting started. "Yeah, that's right. They're standing right in front of me. No cause, no reason, just flexing authority like it's a parlor trick." She paused, tilting her head toward them. "They're not even that creative about it." She turned her attention back to the phone. "I don't know what kind of favors you still owe me, Cam, but I need one cash in. Fast." Leighton laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that people do when they don't know what else to do with their hands. "That's supposed to scare us?" he asked, raising an eyebrow like he was still in control. Nia didn't even look at him. She kept her eyes forward, still holding the phone to her ear. "No," she said evenly. "It's supposed to remind you." That shut him up for a beat, because deep down, Leighton knew what people like Nia didn't say mattered a hell of a lot more than what they did. And right now, she wasn't making noise, she was setting a stage. You could feel the shift. The diner, once filled with passive ignorance, had become a place where even the napkin dispensers felt like they were paying attention. The man in the back put down his newspaper. The teenage boy near the jukebox paused his music. Erin, the waitress, had stopped mid-step with a pot of coffee hovering uselessly in her hand. Everyone smelled the moment power changed seats, Nia thought. This wasn't about coffee anymore. It was about who got to stay standing. Leighton started shifting his weight between feet, like the floor had become uneven. Rafferty's arms, once confidently crossed, now dangled awkwardly, like he wasn't sure what to do with them. And then the bell above the door gave a tired jingle. The kind that usually meant a tired trucker or a delivery guy, but this time it was something else entirely. A tall man in a gray suit stepped in, water still clinging to the hem of his pants from the storm outside. He walked with purpose, no hesitation, scanning the room like he'd been here before in another life. He held up a badge before anyone could ask. "Detective Owen Price, Wake County Internal Affairs," he said, voice sharp enough to wake a sleeping conscience. He walked past Erin like she wasn't there, his eyes locked on Leighton and Rafferty. "You two. Outside. Now." It wasn't a question. It wasn't an option. It was gravity, and it didn't care about egos. Leighton's mouth opened. "This is a joke, right?" Price didn't answer. He didn't even blink. He just stepped closer, forcing the air out of the room. "Badge numbers. Now!" Rafferty looked at Leighton, then back at Price. His posture deflated. Leighton finally moved, slowly, like someone realizing the ground under him had never really been solid. They walked toward the door in silence. Price followed, not looking back once. It was the kind of moment that rearranged the molecules in the air. The kind of entrance that doesn't just change a room, it resets it. Inside, the diner stayed frozen, mouths shut, eyes wide. It felt like everyone was waiting for credits to roll or for someone to announce that this was all part of a filmed reenactment. The manager peeked from the kitchen, then disappeared, like he regretted ever being on shift. Erin finally blinked, glancing at Nia like she wasn't sure if she should apologize or applaud. Nia didn't move. She didn't need to. She had already flipped the entire story without raising her voice once. The people they thought they controlled, Nia thought, were the ones watching now. She reached for her mug with both hands, lifted it to her lips, and took a slow sip. It was lukewarm, bitter, weak. But in that moment, it tasted like something else entirely. It tasted like justice. Outside, the rain hadn't let up, but now it felt like background noise to something bigger. A storm of accountability forming right there on the sidewalk. Detective Owen Price stood in front of officers Layton and Rafferty, not raising his voice, not flashing drama, just speaking with the kind of weight that makes men sweat without heat. "You know why I'm here," he said. "And you know it's not just because of today." Layton scoffed, half-heartedly. "This is about one loudmouth vet?" Price didn't blink. "This is about a dozen reports, Sergeant. 12 complaints, buried like bones in a shallow yard. And you know what happens when it rains long enough? That dirt gets soft, and bones rise to the surface." Rafferty shifted, uneasy. "I never laid a hand on anyone," he mumbled. Price turned to him. "No, you didn't. But you stood there while Layton did. You backed him up, wrote the same lies, co-signed the silence." Layton opened his mouth again, but Price cut him off. "You've been flagged for excessive force twice, one settled, one unsubstantiated. Both times swept under the rug. Not anymore." Inside the diner, Nia watched through the steamed-up glass like it was a screen she'd seen play out in too many countries with too many uniforms. She was still as a photograph, back straight, face unreadable, eyes locked on the sidewalk where truth was finally catching up to bravado. There was no satisfaction in her expression, just focus. A kind of patience you don't learn from books. You earn it in places where peace wears a helmet. She'd seen this look before, the moment soldiers realize the gear on their chest doesn't protect them from what's already inside. Armor's useless when you're being crushed by the weight of your own choices. Price stepped closer, his voice lower now but sharper. "This isn't about a misunderstanding. This isn't about a rough day. This is a pattern, gentlemen. This is ritual misbehavior dressed in procedure. Pulling folks out of diners, kicking duffels that don't kick back, targeting the ones who don't have lawyers on speed dial, and it keeps happening, not because the system's broken, but because men like you count on it working exactly as it is." Layton's lips pressed into a line, his jaw flexed, but he didn't offer a defense. There wasn't one. Rafferty looked at the ground. "You're both being placed under review," Price said, "effective immediately. Captain Russo's already en route." Layton blinked. "Russo? Yeah?" Price said. "He's been signing off on your cover-ups too long. That ends today." Erin finally stepped out from behind the counter, the coffee pot still in her hand like she forgot she was holding it. She walked over to Nia's table. Slowly, like every step carried more than weight, it carried regret. "I didn't know," she said quietly. Nia looked up at her. "That's the point," she replied. "You're not supposed to." Erin's eyes dropped. "You don't notice until it's loud," Nia added, softer now. "Until someone breaks something? Then everyone pretends they were paying attention all along." Erin nodded. "Barely. I should have said something sooner." Nia didn't respond. She just gave her a look. Not cold, not warm, just real. A few minutes later, the teenage boy from the jukebox wandered over, earbuds dangling around his neck. "Were they gonna arrest you?" he asked. His voice cracked at the end, still somewhere between boyhood and anger. Nia turned toward him, then took a breath. "They were gonna try," she said, "but the story had other plans." The boy looked confused. "What kind of plans?" Nia leaned back. "The kind that show up in suits when bullies forget someone's keeping score." Price came back inside, brushing rain from his shoulders, the badge now clipped to his belt like punctuation. "It's not over," he said to Nia. She nodded. "Good," she replied. "Then let's start writing down what they tried to erase." Her voice didn't rise, but the words landed. In that little diner with weak coffee and too many regrets, something had changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to make memories stick where silence used to be. The news didn't break like a scandal. It trickled out, steady as a leak, Quiet at first, just a local headline, a hushed mention at the grocery store, a sideways glance in the post office. But it spread. Retirement paperwork for Layton and Rafferty was filed within the week. No farewell parties, no plaques, just signatures and silence. And while no one said it out loud, the town knew it wasn't just paperwork. It was pressure. It was exposure. It was consequence with a stamp on it. The kind of quiet accountability that only happens when someone like Nia pushes open a diner door and refuses to leave quietly. The town hadn't exploded, but it had been pierced. The system didn't explode, one local columnist wrote. It leaked. And the town finally heard it. The diner got a new sticker in the window, "Veterans Welcome." No questions. The precinct got new scrutiny. And for once, it didn't bounce off. At the next town meeting, an older woman stood up, holding a worn manila folder to her chest like it might break apart if she let go. "My name is Lorraine Pierce," she said into the mic, her voice shaking but rising with each syllable. "And when my son was 16, Officer Layton slammed him against a squad car because he mouthed off. I filed a complaint. I brought photos. Nothing happened. They told me it was my word against his. The room didn't clap. It didn't need to. It listened. You could feel people nodding. Silent affirmations that meant more than sound. I thought we were alone," she added, eyes sweeping across faces that suddenly weren't strangers anymore. "Turns out, we were just the first ones ignored." She wasn't a witness. She was a warning they chose not to hear. Until now. And like sparks catching dry grass, more people stood. Small voices. Lost files. Years of forgetting. Until forgetting wasn't safe anymore. Nia wasn't at the meeting. She didn't need to be. Her name echoed through the room, like punctuation at the end of someone else's story. But the next day, Price called her and asked if she'd be willing to testify formally, to be part of the hearings. She didn't answer right away. The word testify had weight, not because she feared it, but because she respected it. "This isn't about me," she told him. It never was. But later that evening, sitting on the back steps of the shelter with her coat zipped high and a cheap sandwich in her lap, she picked up her flip phone and called him back. "Yeah," she said, "I'll do it. Not for glory, not for payback. For the ones who couldn't put their names on paper. For the ones whose complaints ended in the trash instead of change." A month later, the town council passed new measures. Internal complaint records would remain open for audit for 5 years minimum. Anonymous filings were now allowed, and all officer-involved incidents, even minor ones, required review by a third party. It wasn't sweeping reform, but it was something, and in places like this, something was more than they ever got. One councilman called it a step forward. Another, more cynical, called it insurance against lawsuits. But Nia called it what it was, daylight. Transparency, she told Price, is the flashlight authority hates most. It doesn't burn, it exposes. And that was enough to make them sweat. Erin called again. Her voice was softer now, but steadier. "I can't stop thinking about it," she said. "What happened? What I didn't say? What I should have done?" Nia listened quietly, letting the silence say what words couldn't. What was I supposed to do?" Erin asked. Nia didn't sugarcoat it. "You brought coffee," she said. "That's more than most brought to the table." Erin let out a half laugh, half sigh. "It still doesn't feel like enough." "That's the point," Nia replied. "It's not supposed to." "If it did, you'd stop paying attention." "This story," Nia said one evening to Price, after another round of interviews and policy drafts and dusty old files, "this story isn't about revenge." She paused, then added, "It's about memory with teeth. Revenge feels good, sure, but memory? Memory sticks. It teaches. It warns. It grows teeth and learns how to bite back the next time someone forgets what respect looks like." And in that, she found something deeper than justice. She felt the beginning of change. Reedsburg didn't feel like a fresh start. It felt like a place where things were still being sorted, quietly, patiently, and maybe that's why Nia chose it. No press, no cameras, just days that began early and ended with the hum of fluorescent lights in shelter kitchens. She didn't chase closure. She built it, one spoonful at a time. She volunteered at a transitional housing center for veterans, where the hours were long but the gratitude was silent and sincere. Mornings were for laundry, making sure folks had clean socks and dignity in their pockets. Afternoons meant soup, big pots of it, whatever they had stretched to serve more than the math allowed. Evenings were for listening. Just listening. No advice, no judgment. A lot of stories came out when someone simply sat still long enough. Nia didn't need titles or uniforms. Her name was enough. Her presence was enough. Erin showed up on a Tuesday. She looked different, not dramatically, just more real. Jeans, a soft t-shirt, hair pulled back in a way that said she'd stopped worrying what people expected. She carried 2 paper bags and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes yet. "I brought lunch," she said. "Hope you still like turkey and mustard." They sat on the curb behind the center, the kind of curb that sloped just enough to tip your soda can if you weren't paying attention. They didn't say much at first. They just chewed and listened to the rustling of the trees. Not all redemption comes with parades. Some come in paper bags with turkey and mustard. Some come in the form of someone who shows up, just shows up. They didn't talk about the diner right away, or the town, or the officers. Instead, Erin asked the question that had been hanging between them like breath on a cold day. "Do you ever think about what they saw?" Nia nodded. "Yeah, but I think more about what they didn't see." Erin didn't interrupt. Nia continued, "Respect isn't owed to uniforms, it's owed to character. That's what I figured out." Erin stared at her hands. "You made me pay attention," she said. "And once you see it, you can't unsee it." Nia looked out at the street. "Good," she said. "Seeing is the first step to doing something." There was no applause, no speech. Just a moment of truth sitting between 2 women who once stood on opposite sides of an ordinary counter and found something extraordinary in the silence that followed. "I'm not fixing anyone," Nia said later, walking Erin through the shelter garden, where a few volunteers were planting squash. "That's not the job. I'm holding space. For the next woman, for the next man, the one who's told they don't belong because they're tired or poor or too quiet to make a scene." Erin listened. She didn't try to twist the words into something more dramatic. She just nodded. "That's enough," she said. Nia shrugged. "Maybe not for headlines, but it's enough for me." There was no certificate to hang, no speech to give, no clip to go viral. Just a sense that service, real service, didn't look like a courtroom drama. It looked like a hot meal, a folded blanket, a look that said, "I see you, I believe you, you matter." As they sat again before Erin left, Nia took a long sip of warm tea. The quiet stretched wide but didn't feel empty. Erin leaned her shoulder slightly toward her, like she didn't want to ask but needed to. "What would you say," she asked, "to the next person who looks at someone like you and starts to judge?" Nia didn't blink. "Ask yourself," she said, "what it costs you to show respect instead." Erin smiled this time, not out of comfort but understanding. "That's gonna stick with me." "It's supposed to," Nia replied. That night, Nia lay on her cot, the kind with a thin mattress and a view of the ceiling pipes that always hummed louder when it rained. Her flip phone rested beside her, scratched but faithful. It hadn't rung in days, and that was fine. She wasn't waiting for anyone. No one was banging on the door. No one was calling her a problem. No one was asking her to explain why she existed. She simply was. And this time, that was enough. Leave a comment below to let us know where you are watching from, and if you like fascinating stories like this, Don't forget to hit that subscribe button because tomorrow we have another incredible story, and there are many surprises waiting for you in the next parts.